How y'all doing? If you like reseller content, toy content, like, subscribe, comment below. Sometimes I don't have room for this shit, and this is one of those times. So, got two vintage G.I. Joe planes. I did not have these when I was a kid. I love G.I. Joes, but their vehicles were kind of priced out, I think, as far as my family were concerned. But I had friends and family that had them. I don't remember these things being this big. This jet is 26 inches long. Absolutely bananas that something that big was out there. But whatever, we got two of those. They're in really rough shape, but we're going to go over our options on them. Then we got behind these Game of Life. I got 5 of them that we're going to go through, part them out and get them out of my backlog here. So let's dig into these lives. All right, so the 4 games we buy for parts are Game of Life, Monopoly, Clue, and Sorry. So I've just been doing them in a big pile lately because it just seems to work a little better for me. Lets me get through stuff a bit quicker. And this has been a lot of what I've been taking in lately. The Jets are actually some of the first toys I've picked up in a while. And I was happy to get them. They had some other stuff at the store that was in really even worse shape that I left, including a Millennium Falcon with no parts, and it had been submerged in water, but we'll get to that. So, life has changed a little bit throughout the years, not as much as most games. You have cars with pegs. The pegs changed in the 80s and then have been consistent other than the vehicle shape. They went from a station wagon to an SUV or a minivan, depending. But that's what we sell out of here, the cars with the pegs. And then the cash and the cards sometimes. So we have an older one here. We have 2 40th anniversary editions, which I don't think I've ever actually been through. At least memory does not serve if I had. And then we got 2 more modern ones. I think one of these... Yeah, one of these is a different spinner. And that's the other thing we sell is the spinner. So we'll dig into the top one. So these are more modern ones. The most modern one has a white spinner, an entirely white spinner. This one has an orange spinner, and this has the classic green. And all the other parts should be basically the same. So the spinners sell. And, oh, that was great. The pegs I need for sure. So we're doing money, pegs, cars, spinners. So we don't really deal with a lot of the stuff in the modern life because it doesn't sell. The money won't move. You know, I put out test sets of stuff just to see, and I checked again. I have some modern money. It's been sitting there for 10 months and nobody's even looked at it. So I'm not going to bother making more listings of it. The older money will move. So we'll get into that. And I don't know about the 40th anniversary. What we got are, you can actually see the 2 different vehicles they went with. We got like more like the original station wagon, but then we switched over to a minivan. So I only had 4 of these, so I can't do anything with that. And I'm way short on pegs. So a standard game, I believe, has 50. So I'm going to have close to a whole set for that. But I do have a whole set of pegs and vehicles with... you can mix and match. They did change colors over the years, but it doesn't factor into the game at all. So as long as you have 6, I don't think it really matters. So we got 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we got some little stuff to put away. All right, let's look at the 40th anniversaries. All right, so now we got these 40th anniversaries. And why they taped an elastic to it, I don't know. Obviously, we don't actually sell these as a game. I think I busted one of these open not that long ago. So the Monopoly anniversaries are very different. And I think this is really not different at all, if I recall. Like the board might have a little different color to it or something. I don't know what their gig is. We just look at the parts real quick. If you're not giving me stuff, I kind of don't care, quite frankly. So, pawns, people pegs, same 7 buildings, spinner. Spinner is totally the same. I think there's like literally no difference with this thing, which is kind of dog shit. But yeah, whatever. Let's get this sorted. If you thought the last two were dismal, one had 3 cars and 0 pegs. The other one had all the cars, not enough pegs. And one of them didn't even have the spinner. They had dice, which I'm not sure how they did that because it's a 10. So they had 2 6-sided dice. I don't know. So yeah, this is actually a loss on those two, effectively. I do have enough pegs, being as I had the extras from the last one, to make this a full set. But not doing great here. And got some more of these, but it's really pegs I need. You know, I have a ton of vehicles. Yeah, and when you're doing parts, I play with the idea of like down the road, because people will buy bulk from me to complete games because they sell completed games, whether they have a hobby store or what have you. I may have to sell just vehicles, no pegs, and do like a big batch of them. You know, like Monopoly, I have, 15 dogs. So what do you do with that? Maybe I'll sell 10 of them down the road and try to make a little bit of money back. But, just pick up $2 and $3 here and there. But we got one more life, and this is an older one. All right, and this is an older one. It is a 91. You can tell by the family because they're all wearing sweaters. That was a 90s thing, I guess. Now they'd all be wearing hoodies. And this really isn't any different. The only difference is... looks like somebody pissed on that. That's awesome. What the fuck? They bag everything up nice, but somebody took a piss on the spinner. That's not even sellable. Woof. All right. Anyways, the only difference is I actually sell the money, which thankfully nobody pissed on, apparently. So let's get this sanitized and sorted. All right, now to that, we have our money. That was in good shape, and we had all the vehicles. I was short 1 peg, so I had to take that out of the spares. The spinner was indeed pissed upon. Might think, maybe you should handle this stuff with gloves. I work in commercial kitchens for doing chemicals, so this doesn't even rank as the worst thing I see in the course of a day. The worst thing would be if maybe they were serving burrito tacos off of that spinner. But yeah, we got some more pegs, got another set of that, and the money, and that puts us here. So we've paid for everything, a little bit of profit. Now we're going to look at these G.I. Joe vintage jets. All right, so here we are at the meat of the matter. Went to one of my stores. I do all my sourcing, like big sourcing, on Sunday. I go to 3 different Goodwills. They're nearby. That's where I get most of my stuff. I do hit other thrift shops if I'm in the vicinity, but that's the day I always set aside for sourcing. So they had a bunch of older toys, and they're in really rough shape. I just wanted to go over certain stuff. You might look at it and immediately say no, because it's clearly missing and having been broken like dramatically. It says $3 as is on the sticker, so you cannot return it on account of it missing absolutely everything. But of course, I recognized it from being a kid. Like I said, this is way bigger than I thought it was. And doing a quick look online, the parts for this, and it's missing a lot of parts, but there are still some things here. It's a pretty robust parts market. I did want to point out something that doesn't factor in as far as I know, but I do like to bring it up when I see it. If you look, all the screws are rusty. That tells me that somebody played with this in a swimming pool or a bathtub. It doesn't matter for this, but if you find an electronic toy in the wild, always check your screws. It's not gonna work. I can guarantee you that. So we have G.I. Joe Jet. And this is 1986, I believe, because back then they would put out, if eight or six. Back then it was like point counterpoint because it was Cobra and Joe. So like they'd put out a tank and then the other side would have their own tank. So the Jet, the Night Raven's the other Jet I have. I thought they came out the same year. I had this boat. I remember having this. I had some of this shit, but not a ton of it. Most of my toys were hand-me-downs. But I do remember that boat. I thought it was cool. Alright, so it's not coming up with anything. It's coming up with helicopters. Now, sometimes a toy is stamped with a year, and it's actually not the year it comes out. They anticipate it coming out, and then it doesn't. Alright, so... Slipstream, or Conquest Jet. So why don't we... I'm assuming the guy's named Slipstream. No, that's not even the right jet. The wings go the other way. What even is this? Play a Joe. We're going to go back to G.I. Joe Jet. And we'll just put vintage. Something, there it is, okay. Skystriker. That's a re-release. 83, okay. This is quite a bit older than the other one. This is almost as old as me. And when you find vintage Joe in the wild, you don't have to look it up. It's gonna move. Like, there's no question that this is gonna be for $3, especially. Now this is something that's interesting that's happening, is people are 3D printing the parts. I've seen them. That's why you're gonna see listings. If you're doing this, it says authentic. So right now we have 1,400 of these. So I have like a body, but it's also huge. When you ship things, understand that once you get past a certain amount of inches, and I believe that is 28, I haven't shipped larger stuff in a while, your shipping goes way up. This one's 24, the other one is 28. So you're going to be spending money to get this anywhere. It has stickers. It's dusty. It's missing a lot. So we're just going to see if we can find a body. You know, like, look at this. The canopy. If I had the canopy, $40. That's a newer version. Okay, so I have deconstructed these and sold panels as well on G.I. Joe stuff, and it will move. There's always somebody looking to, you know, I guarantee there's dozens of eBay guys who all they do is buy junk G.I. Joes and complete them and sell them as, you know, vintage completes, because for $200, sure, You know, if you want to make that your side hustle, you go for it. Now, 3D printed pieces, and even the 3D print, you know, like 3D printed stuff, like $20. Wild. So I'm not seeing like a body yet. That's a newer one. You know, we're gonna put in. Let's narrow this down. We'll put in 1983. That knocked us down to 900. But I'm not seeing like a total corpse at the moment. Actually, this is incomplete, and they're asking $40. And it looks almost as incomplete as mine. I'm missing like something here. All right, let's go to sold, and we get an idea of what the parts market looks like. All that. $925 for sale. 616 sold, and we're gonna have, you know, thrusters, all this stuff I can go through. But I'm just looking for, are any of these like dead bodies selling? Ejector seats, a spring, landing gear cover spring, $24. Like the big it's 3D print again. And you know, like, I get the 3D print thing because, you know, you can complete one for a lot of money, or you can complete one on the cheap and make it custom and stuff, so there's some ambivalence towards it. Although it does affect pricing. But again, this isn't life or death either, so rather somebody just complete something and be happy with it, quite frankly. So I'm not seeing like a body going. We could also do incomplete, because that implies it's a broken body that they're selling. We got 104. I don't know why they're putting incomplete when it's a figure. Like, that's almost the standard. This one's missing a lot of stuff, but has more than me. That one has the canopy. I mean, right there, the canopy we know is good money. That one's bare. No decals. If it came with the decals, I bet that would be something. That one has the seat. So I'm going to be parting this out, because I don't think the body is going to move by itself. So I'm going to just look at what we can get off of this. Almost anything is going to work. So right here we have this hatch. Now, of course, this is 42 years old, so we do have to be kind of careful. All right. So right there, that's a part. That's going to do something. The nose, might be able to get that off because that's a rubbery piece. Unlikely. We'll take a screwdriver to this. So we have like a landing gear cover. We can get that out. And then I can decide if I want to sell this as all the parts or in individual piece pairs. I need a smaller screwdriver, I think. So I bet these landing gears go for something. That landing gear spring goes for something. Saw that. I'm not sure how this works, because I'm missing, I believe, no, that's the wings, which they move. Oh, okay. Yeah, so if you look inside here, there was a piece that came out that broke off. That's how you controlled the wings. Now the wings themselves, I can take off because they're decaled. I bet I could get a listing out of that. How do we get these wheels? Oh, they're all connected. Sort of. It didn't want to go. Did they all come out? Yeah. So that spring Homeboy sold might be in here. Now, here's the issue though. If you look at the hubs, this was submerged, like I said, with the screws. So that might be a problem. We got these like afterburner guys. We saw those when we were looking. Those go for something. We're going to take this apart and we'll get a pile going and we'll figure out what we're doing with it. Here's what we ended up with completely deconstructed. I got these wings off, 2 afterburners, the 1 hatch for the rear landing gear, that top panel, the nose of the plane, because that's rubber, so that could break off. Then we got the landing gear covers. One of them chipped a little bit here, but we got the landing gears with the corrosion, but they're still, you know, something like this I don't think could be 3D printed because the wheels are actually rubber. And this is missing the cover, but still, it's a front landing gear. I don't know how I'm going to chop this up at the moment, but price-wise, we are looking at... This stuff sells for a lot of money. I'm guessing I might do the wings separately, do those separately, and maybe all the landing gear stuff, and then this separately. But either way, I'm looking at about $55 worth of parts after shipping, depending on how I break that up. But stuff is definitely going to move. Huge parts market for this, like unlike anything I've seen, honestly. You know, G.I. Joe is just a thing of its own. 171 parts sold, and we can see the afterburner thing I have 2 of. That hatch alone, $10. You know, the nose of the plane and 1 cover. You know, that kind of, you know, just, that seems like a bit under what they could have gotten for it, but whatever. And you see this guy, you know, people use different backgrounds, their stuff is recognizable. This dude appears to sell nothing but parts. I've run into his stuff before. So, whether he's buying lots and parting them out or what, I don't know, but, yeah, that spring. If we had that spring, there were no springs to be found, unfortunately. With that corrosion, they more than likely just disappeared. You know, just these little covers I got. You know, $12. Gears themselves, wings going. There weren't a ton of them for sale. But, you know, $10 a wing. Those covers, I got 1. So that's in, you know, 8. Yeah, so let's look at the other plane now. All right, so this is the Cobra Night Raven. And kind of the same deal. It's missing a lot of stuff, but it was the first one I saw. I recognized. And when I picked it up, it had the cockpit release. And I immediately thought, that alone will pay for both of these. Could almost guarantee it. Like I said with G.I. Joe, you don't even have to look it up. It just is what it is. It looks whole and intact, and you know, this is going to be parts again. I don't like that there's glue on that. Now what do we got? So I think, if I recall, there was like another plane or something that went into here. Let me look it up, because I don't remember necessarily. But it was called Night Raven. I think it was Night Raven. Sold parts. Hold on. There, yeah. So it was on the back. This, and I liked the little plane. I thought that was fucking cool. So, because this thing's just unwieldy, especially when you're 6. This is the same size as you. Kind of awkward to play with it. Yeah, 1,200 of these guys. So the little plane itself sells for good money. So as a chassis, I don't think it's going to go for anything. And again, it's really long, and shipping it would be very expensive. So we're going to do parts. So let's, through the magic of movies, we shall take this thing apart. All right, so kind of a similar amount of stuff, I guess. We got that cockpit, like ramp thing. We have the front and back of the afterburners. We have the canopy glass. We have a rear landing gear cover. We have a front landing gear. We have the like engine cover things. And this actually fell out while I was breaking it apart. And I don't know what it is, but it went to that. So we'll find out. So let's get an idea on parts. And we're just going to go straight to sold. Not as many parts. 293. 149. So we got a pile of different stuff. Yeah, so they got whatever that is. Mine's rusty as fuck, though. So we have the covers, similar stuff, and they got $30. So it doesn't look like it's quite as high value as the other one, which makes sense. You have a bit more nostalgia for the good guy stuff. This I might end up just selling the whole thing. That's the... Oh, drone. Okay. Drone exhaust. Yeah, because the drone has its own components. Yeah, again, kind of a similar setup to mine for 35. So I may just do this whole thing as one lot. Call it whatever. Yeah, I got this. Those didn't seem like they would break, quite frankly. I'm wondering if this is going to be a higher value piece, though. Because it's prone to falling off. So let's look. Cockpit. Elevator. Let's put cockpit in and see. That's an $18+ part. Oh, okay, wait a minute. Does that go into that? Because this has like a little bit of glue residue, and I didn't understand why. Because there was nothing in it. It wasn't broken. But if that all fit together, that would make sense. Yeah, it does. You can see it here. It comes down and then pops up. So we're missing that bit. Yes, I think we'll just do 35 for everything here. And that'll be another... We're just shy of $100, but really good pickups. So I was running it by my my fellow collector reseller guy who loves vintage G.I. Joe to see if he wants this stuff first, and then I'll start listing it out. But good day at the office. So if you like reseller content, toy content, like, subscribe, comment below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.